Hey, it's Kevin Lawton with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. And on today's episode, I am going to be joined by Jerry Abiog. He is the CEO at Standard Insights, and Standard Insights has been doing AI for quite some time before it was that trendy as it is now. So we're going to dive a little bit into that, what Standard Insights does. We're going to talk about AI in the warehouse space and how it's grown and where it's going as well. And we'll talk a little bit about their solutions and how they address some issues that are in the 3PL warehousing business industry. So, Jerry, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, good. Hey, Kevin. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to this.
Yes, happy to get you on. Definitely happy to get you on here and talk about this. Now, tell us a little bit, I guess, give us a brief overview of kind of Standard Insights and how you came, since you're the founder of Standard Insights. Tell us kind of how you came to found the company as well.
Yeah, so you have to go back. If you're on here, check out my LinkedIn profile. So my last, I guess, real job, if you will, was in the late
Mm,
2010s. And after I left that job, I went on my own to help
mm,
my own business to help software companies with sales and marketing initiatives. And at that point in time, in the mid 2010s, I guess 2015, 2016, I had a client that was in the AI and machine learning space. So that was my first
okay,
foray into the world of artificial intelligence. Well,
mm,
that business failed. And as this company was imploding, failing, shutting down through uh, mutual friends, I met someone that was visiting from India, visiting Atlanta, where I live. And we were
mhm,
chatting, having some beers. And he told me about this prototype of a AI driven marketing platform that he had built that would help businesses drive repeat buyers. And this was in 2018, 2019 time
mm,
frame. So learning what I learned before from the other company that failed, I'm like, okay, this may have some legs to it. So I flew from Atlanta to the outdoor retail show out in Denver, Colorado, and
okay.
came back with two beta clients. So we started off with four co-founders, or four guys that had founded it, and two of the guys that helped co-found it have backgrounds in computer science and statistics. So really heavy, math and science space, as we all know, that AI is built on. And we just kind of rolled from there. So we officially launched back in 2019, back when no one really knew what AI was, and now it's
Yeah.
a trendy buzzword, probably more popular than Taylor Swift or the Kardashians.
Maybe, and some people may be saying that Taylor Swift is created by AI. I
Yeah,
see out there,
exactly.
all kinds of crazy things. So yeah, I mean, I think it's very interesting. That you mentioned there. You started with this AI back in 2018, 2019, and like you said, I mean, really over the last year, 2023, I mean, is really where we've seen this explosion
Yeah,
around AI, and not just from an industry perspective, just in general, right? And in personal lives, Chat GPT certainly, I think, kind of blew the lid off of AI. I would say, in a sense, bringing it into people's everyday lives
yeah.
and making it a huge topic of discussion. So, I mean, you've been dealing with AI now for a few years, kind of before this trend, right? So, I mean, how do you see AI has kind of developed in those last 5 or 6 years now that you've been working with it?
Yeah, I think it was a slow moving process. And truthfully, AI
Mm,
has been in our daily lives for the last 10 years or so, with Amazon and product recommendations and Netflix with
yeah.
movie recommendations. But not that many people realized it until ChatGPT came on the scene
Mm,
in 2023. Now it's all over the place. People on their
yeah.
LinkedIn profile are mentioned to do AI, and I mean, which is great, right? It's great that um, AI is taking, I guess, the center stage, if you will, and more so
Right.
now than it was a few years back, because we're dealing with inflation, labor shortages, lack of VC funding. So, just a few short years ago, as a companies didn't really have to worry about that. Money was so cheap.
Mm.
Many businesses were focused on growth instead of profitability. Now that has changed. So it really has opened up to whatever AI tools are out there, helping businesses become that more efficient and that more profitable.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, I think it's very interesting to see how it's developed in that way too. And I think, like you mentioned, certainly labor shortage and trying to save money. AI has become kind of a productivity tool in a lot of senses for people. And I'm interested too. I mean, you mentioned back, you went to the outdoor retailers trade show and came out with a couple clients. I mean, at that point back in 2019, I mean, what were people as you were kind of pitching them, I guess, and trying to get some clients? I mean, what were people saying about AI then, and how was their feeling about bringing AI into their business and trying to leverage it?
Yeah, so back then, I mean, we were literally, if you look on our website, pretty much the fundamental messaging still remains the same, driving repeat
Mm,
buyers with the
yeah,
help of AI from 2018 to 2019. But now people know about it, right? So back in
yeah,
when I went to the trade, I mean, I would cold call from booth to booth to booth. Hey, my name's Jerry Abiog. We have this, AI tool. What's AI, right? And out of
yeah,
out of 10 people, one or two people like, okay, tell me about it. Tell me some more. And then we had COVID, and after that, it kind
mm,
of really started to not take off, but just slow momentum of growth, right? Because now
mm,
businesses, and this is before Chat GPT, after coming out of COVID, realize that they've got to start doing something different. And then
mm.
now with last year with Chat GPT, everything's just taken off like a rocket ship.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and I think it's really interesting to see, and how people are now. I think even you mentioned people, their LinkedIn profiles like we do AI, right? And I think you go to some of the trade shows too now, and you see some companies where like there was no mention of AI in their stack or whatever they were doing, and now you see like everybody is like dot AI, right? Like their name is dot AI. So I mean, it's very interesting, and I think it does address a lot of the issues that we've been having in the industry, for sure, around labor challenges and trying to get do more with less and things like that. I mean, so how do you see from your perspective when we talk about AI? I mean, obviously, it's making an impact in multiple different industries, but when we look at warehouse related businesses, specifically in the warehouse industry. How do you see AI being kind of leveraged in that realm, and how does it kind of help that industry?
Yeah, so I think for any business, and let's take the warehouse 3PL, packaging distribution business. They've
Yeah.
got something. A lot of those companies have something in their hands that they possess that can give them, great insights, and that's their first party data. And
Mm,
Standard Insights, we help businesses leverage that first party data. Then I get asked, well, what type of data? Well, we leverage, or our sweet spot is leveraging sales data, customer data, and product data to make predictions. And within those predictions, help give those companies a competitive advantage. And so,
mm,
what can we predict? Well, we can predict the potential profitability of each customer. So, if you're a 3PL and you've got uh, 10 clients, just say, for example's sake, on 10 e-commerce shops, you've got uh, 10 e-commerce shops as clients, and each of those
mhm,
shops maybe has 50,000 purchase orders, 500 customers, or I'm sorry, 5,000 customers, 500 products. You multiply by that by
yeah.
10. That's a lot of data you've got to sift through. So if we can help those 3PLs or warehouses make predictions on the potential profitability of each of those their customers. Number two, make predictions on a macro level what their customers are likely to purchase. So maybe using geographic, demographic, psychographic, or behavior characteristics, predict on an individual level what their clients are likely to purchase. And lastly,
Mm.
do inventory level predictions on the SKU level. So if you take all four predictions, all four components, and then when it's done right, it can eventually have a positive impact on a 3PL or warehouse's top and bottom line.
Mm. Yeah, very interesting, and I love that you touched on kind of the just the enormous scale of data that can be out there when you look at scenarios like that, and especially with e-commerce. I mean, you look at like maybe a traditional B2B type of distribution versus an e-commerce shop, like you mentioned. I mean, you're going to see so many more transactions, and the scale of that data is just going to be extrapolated so much more. So I mean, I'm curious for like to give some contrast, right? If you wanted to do these types of insights or try and harness this data in this way to make these understandings and decisions without AI, I mean, how would you even go about doing that? I mean, is it even really necessarily feasible in a sense to get to that level?
It could, but you'd be chunking and slogging through spreadsheets. And if you think about the
Yeah.
cost, the labor costs that would entail, you could run up a big bill. And speaking of
Oh, yeah.
when we first started back in 2018, 2019, our first partners came from the fulfillment space because they
Mm,
knew that in the fulfillment space, you're going to be dealing with lots of customers and a lot of data. So that's where initially our first partnerships came from.
mm. Interesting, interesting. Yeah, and I'm curious, like on in that perspective, right? I mean, you're generating all this data. You have all this data coming in. I mean, how do you, I guess, get an organization ready, or how does an operation get ready to say like, oh, like let's bring in some type of AI solution, whether it's Standard Insight, something else. I mean, how do you say like, okay, our data is at a point where we can leverage AI like in a smart way and be able to utilize this to get more out of what we're doing.
So yeah, good, great question. So we'll approach it from a crawl, walk, run approach. So typically, we'll get a sample size of your
Okay.
data, right? And this could be coming from your ERP, some cases from your WMS, or in other cases, if you are a 3PL and you're serving 10 e-commerce stores, we have integrations with Shopify, WooCommerce, BigCommerce, etc. So we'll get a small sample size of data, show it to them. Hey, this is the potential of growth that can happen, potential savings, and we take it from there before we um, go on with the full-born implementation.
Mm, interesting, interesting. Good to know. Yeah, yeah, and I think it's interesting too because you want to know. I think companies are eager to, in a sense, like bring in this new technology and do these types of things. But then, you also need to be at the point where you can handle these types of solutions as well. Especially from a data perspective, and I think it's really important too as well. So tell us a little bit about kind of the technology itself that you guys are utilizing and bringing into play. How does it work? And are you leveraging other technologies aside from AI, like potentially RFID or barcode data for like that inventory visibility and inventory management perspective?
Yeah, so you bring a good point, right, with RFID and
Hmm.
barcode data, because one software company can't do everything by itself, right? So we've got other
Yeah.
hardware partners. So if you take, for example, RFID and barcoding, that's a piece of hardware, right? But enables you to accurately record inventory in less time with less people, right? So we take all that data there, that's dumped into, in this case, let's say an ERP. And once we take all
Yeah.
that data from the ERP, that inventory data, we tie that into sales. Now we can accurately make predictions. But before you can make predictions on what particular e-commerce store is likely to purchase, you need to accurately account for that data, right? So when it comes into the warehouse, so that starts off with RFID and barcoding. That's why we have partners in those areas.
Hmm. Very interesting. Yeah, and I think it's interesting there. You mentioned, you have this data and you're able to take it to the ERP, and then sales is able to leverage it, and then at some point, I'm sure marketing is able to leverage it too. So, I mean, tell us a little bit about kind of the power of being able to harness that data and utilizing the AI for like a full organization perspective. I mean, how powerful does that become now that you're tracking these data points, and not only is it benefiting like the warehouse operation, but it's benefiting all these other levels of the organization too as well. I mean, how does that kind of just become even more powerful?
Yeah. So you mentioned, first things first, right? All the data, or sorry, all the product comes to the warehouse, right?
Yeah.
We get that done. We get that recorded accurately with RFID and barcoding. All that is dumped into ERP. Now that's tied into sales. Now that's when marketing and sales takes over, being able to target the right person with the right product at the right time. And so for 3PL, if they can help their customers know better know themselves, it's going to help
Hmm.
improve everyone's sales. Not only improving sales, but increasing average order value and reducing customer churn. So, I know it's competitive in the 3PL space, but if you're an e-commerce shop, say I have a wine shop, but my 3PL, who is a quasi, I mean, is a consultant for me, is always giving me information on how I could do my business better. And if I'm a 3PL and I could share this technology with them as an e-commerce wine shop, I'm more than likely going to stick with a 3PL than go to their competitors down the street. So it ties back
Yeah.
into our mission, helping businesses drive repeat buyers with the help of AI.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's such a great point there too, as well. Because, I think especially with e-commerce, like you mentioning the wine shop scenario, right? I mean, if the wine shop is a newer e-commerce store, and maybe they started it because they love wine,
Yeah,
right? It's not necessarily they started because they have a supply chain background, right? And they love everything about planning and forecasting and all these things, right? It's because most likely they had a passion about wine, or they saw an opportunity in the market, or they come from some type of, wine background, right? In this example, or whatever their e-commerce shop is focused on. So, they don't necessarily know how to look at that type of
yeah,
information or those insights. So when you're a 3PL and you have, something that can allow you to provide that extra value add of service, I think is such a huge thing to going, like you said, a long way as a long-term partner
yeah,
for that business, right? Because you're able to tell them what's going on, and you're able to know too from your own perspective for planning around their sales and their
yeah.
inventory too.
And chances are for the 3PL, you already have access to their sales data.
Hmm.
So if you're at 3PL, you're serving 10 e-commerce stores. And again, we mentioned this earlier, with those e-commerce stores, have 50,000 purchase orders,
Yeah.
5,000 customers and 500 products, multiply that by 10. I mean,
Mm.
even one, it's hard to chunk through a spreadsheet and figure out,
Oh
the
yeah.
buying patterns. Now multiply that by 10, 15, 20, and what have you. That AI is just going to get smarter over time. And once it's set up, it could spit out the recommendations and predictions in an instant. And we talked about marketing. Now within our platform, you can execute data-driven campaigns after everything is analyzed. So it's all right there within one single solution.
Yeah, and I think that's so great to be able to have just that one solution, kind of that one stop shop to be able to do that and leverage all those inputs, and to be able to take kind of those actions and make decisions based on that, and in 3PL case, give some guidance too to your clients, which I think is goes a long way, and it solidifies that partnership even further. So very interesting to learn about Standard Insight and kind of AI and the warehousing space here, and how it's currently being played out and how it's developed, as you mentioned, over the last couple years. If you've been dealing with it, so what do you think as we look into the future? I mean, what do you think the future of AI in the warehousing industry looks like?
I think it's just going to get bigger. We're going to see increased adoption. Now, I don't think they're going to run out and start buying AI software. There's going to be some educational process to it. As humans, we're slow to adopt a change and may be
Yeah,
hesitant. My Excel spreadsheets, have been doing fine, right? But I think there comes a point for a particular 3PL or for a warehouse when when it becomes to be too painful, right? It's like, okay, I
mm,
know I'm going to go through some changes here, learning about a new software, learning through a new process, but going through that, is it worth it to, get up to here? So
mm.
I think with more it's about educating the public, and slowly but surely they're going to get buy-in, right? But look what happened to other companies that were, technology laggards, right? Blockbuster Video, Sears, Borders
Yeah.
Books. I'm not saying that the your 3PL will go that route, but it could be a possibility. But I would suggest for these warehouses, 3PLs, um, talk to these software companies, see what they could do to help address your business issues or any business pain that you may be having.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's such a great point because I think we are coming to somewhat of an inflection point for warehousing where driven by competition, like we all know Amazon is kind of leading the way,
Yeah,
right, in a lot of technology standpoint, and has pushed a lot of expectations from a consumer perspective onto now other 3PL and fulfillment providers. But I think with those kind of things, and also the labor market in a sense as well, it is kind of at that point where it's you have to start adopting some of these technologies, like you said, in order to survive and not become the blockbuster
yeah,
of warehousing, like you mentioned there. So, yeah, I mean, I think really interesting insights here with you, Jerry, and definitely really appreciate you diving a little deeper into the AI side of things. I think a lot of people are very interested in that topic, and rightfully so, because I think it's changing the way we do a lot of things, and making us more powerful in a sense from a data perspective, and allowing us to make even more better informed decisions too, I believe.
yeah.
So very interesting to talk to you and learn about Standard Insights, and kind of get some of your knowledge here around AI. If people are interested in getting started with AI, and are interested in learning more about Standard Insights, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, they can visit our website, Standard Insights, all spelled out.io, and schedule a meeting with us there or chat with the chatbot, or they could find me on LinkedIn, Jerry, Jerry Abiog, Abiog. I'm the only one there. Or they can shoot me an email, Jerry at standardinsights.io, and would love to chat with them.
All right, definitely. And we'll definitely put all that information at thenewwarehouse.com as well. So, Jerry, thank you once again for joining me on the show today.
Hey, thanks, Kevin. Thanks for having me on.